item number 2. So we're going to read this together, but Brian, why don't you say your name, then Doug and I, then we'll read it.
Okay, and gentlemen, if you stand up, raise your hand. When you read it, sorry.
Cheesy.
Oh,
Just, this is gonna go.
Yeah, you're fine.
Don't worry about it.
I, Brian Punman,
I, Douglas Meyer,
I, Matthew J. Johannesman, do solemnly
swear to affirm
that I
that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Missouri, the Charter of the St. Charles County, and the laws of the United States, the State of Missouri, and the County of St. Charles, and that I will faithfully demean myself in the office to which I was appointed on the 24th day of February 2025.
Thank you. Can we do a roll call, please?
We can. Mike Bowie, Cindy Fox Griffey, Debbie
Here.
Haley. Oh, okay. Debbie Haley. Here. Matt Johannesman.
Here.
Scott Kochmeyer.
Here.
Rick Masterson.
Here.
Doug Meyer.
Here.
Brian Punman.
Here.
Robert Schmidt.
Here.
Mike Steiniger. James Tagnoni.
Here.
Thank you. At this time, we would open up public comment. Hearing none, we'll close public comment. Item number 5, we've got 2 sets of minutes that were emailed out, so the January and April minutes.
Motion to approve?
Any discussion or amendments? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And we'll move on to item number 6, which is the 2026 to 2028 TIP application presentations. And we'll start with the City of Lake St. Louis, please.
Hi, Board. Terry Rigdon, City of Lake St. Louis. Thanks for letting us present our projects today. We had 2 projects. One of them was Orf Road Design, and one of them is Technology Drive Sidewalk Project. The Orf Road Design was originally applied for as a full project. We did not get federal funding for it. It was just short. We're going to revise that application to resubmit next year, and so we're just asking for the design funds to go ahead and put the design together and to be able to apply for it with a lesser dollar value next year to try to get the money for it. So I'm the first one to go here, so. First one's Orf Road West Phase 1 Design Project. It's this section of Orf Road West. Oh, sorry. It's the first phase of Orf Road. So Orf Road goes from Dwella all the way over here to Lake St. Louis Boulevard and then continues on. This phase here is 2 lanes of asphalt, no curb and gutter, open drainage, kind of dangerous edges on it, and we're looking to just do this portion here on the first phase. It's a 3-phase project from there all the way to Lake St. Louis Boulevard. We did another design study on Lake St. Louis Boulevard, and it had the 2050 traffic here, 10,000 cars in 2050. I believe another study we did, it was around 2034, it was already up to 6,000 cars. So it continues to increase traffic. This land here is getting ready. Developers are looking at it to develop also at this point in time, except for a piece of it, which is the church is going to keep. There you go. So what we're looking for in the design scope is, I'll show you in a minute, the vertical curve correction to increase sight distance and driver safety on a section, adding curb and gutter, enclosing the storm sewers, 6-foot sidewalk on one side of the road and 10-foot side path on the other, and then a 2-way left turn center lane basically at one of the major intersections or future major intersections at Mason Glen, and then some street lighting. There's no street lighting out there now. The existing typical is just 2 lanes, and then it's basically open ditches just off the edge of the pavement. Like I said, the typical on the future, proposed typical would be 2 12-foot lanes, a safety green space, and then the sidewalks as the main, as the typical for the main section, and then at the access management point, it'd be a 3-lane. The center turn lane is here. This is Mason Glen. We're kind of what we looked at, this development, this entrance is going to tie into there across it, and that would be the access management. That allows us, our last application was a 3-lane the whole way through. This allows us to keep it down to a 2-lane, reduce the cost, better our score on the next federal funding project, but still maintain some through traffic and lessen the delays on it at that intersection. That intersection also, I'll show you a picture later, has a sight distance inadequate. So this project would correct that vertical curb deficiency. There's 2 of these culverts on the project that they would be extended, which are a safety hazard. They're right on the edge of the pavement. It's not real safe. There's 2 of these on the project also that would be extended and corrected. There's the sight distance issue coming up to that Mason Glen entrance. It's just kind of dangerous coming in and out of that. We put some lights up and some steins to help, but it's still a dangerous intersection. For the design portion of it, we're requesting just an 80-20 split, $300,000 for the design, $240,000 we're requesting from the county road board, $60,000 from the city match.
So the culverts aren't a part of this, that's just the future part of the
That's the
project.
future part. I was just showing
Thank
some of
you.
the scope of the design,
Yep.
what we plan to look at and do the design on, so you
Appreciate
know
it.
what
Yep,
we're
thank you.
designing or asking for. Preliminary engineering would hopefully be done in 2026, right away 27 and 28, and then construction 28, 29, and that's based on the STP grant funding schedule. Also, a section of this, most of this road is actually a St. Charles County road. There's only a small section of it that's really Lake St. Louis currently, and I believe that the county is going to request us to take over the road after construction. So, any questions on that project?
Question, you said design only, yet I think the sheet in here shows everything.
So, yeah, so we had the applications, because we just found out about federal funding, we had the applications as they were, and I didn't have time to change everything. So at the next meeting, actually, I'll intercept until there's several projects that are going to end up as design only. However, I'm going to score them with their category at like an original cost estimate, so we can see how they come out in score and everything else that we're doing. And I'm going to try to do something different and fund them early so that we can get into design before the next cycle of federal funding, which is in February. So if they have money starting at the beginning of the year, they don't have any time to get anything done. So I'm going to try to get those approved at the next meeting. I held a pot of money for planning, and I think it'll actually work perfectly to fund the early design on some of these non-federal projects. And we have it available. I can just put the agreements through council once you guys have approved, and they can get started in July.
Will we get credit for that when the whole project goes through the federal funding process?
So we could. A lot of these projects weren't funded because they asked for the full 80% because we wanted them to, just to see how they score. So they probably won't be asking for the whole 80% next time. So design will kind of not be a part of it anyway.
Thank you.
Yep.
And on this project, we're looking to reduce the overall cost of the project anyway by lessening some of our improvements and still making a good project, so to score higher with less funding. Our second project is the Technology Drive Sidewalk Project. We have a project now that the sidewalk is here, a shared use path on Long Technology Drive to Lake St. Louis Boulevard, all the way up to Tech Loop. And then there's no shared use path all the way down to Feisey Road. And there's a couple pieces of sidewalk that are in place here, and then there's a lot of gaps. So this project is looking to fill in those gaps and to put in the 10-foot sidewalk or side path on the north side there. We're going to add a mid-block crosswalk with the pedestrian beacon, street lights, like I said, the 6-foot sidewalk on the south side of Tech Drive and a 10-foot side path on the north side. Here's the picture I was hoping I had earlier, but so the blue is what we're asking for. The red is what a developer's actually, we got a developer going to finish that portion of it. So this project is basically asking for the blue. The whole connectivity, this developer's in play right now. We already have the improvement plans. Everything's set for them to build this out. So the blue is actually what's in this grant application. It's part of the St. Charles County Gateway Greenway Bike Plan is to connect, it's right here, is to connect these two pieces here. So this would be connecting into and fulfilling the recommendation of the St. Charles County Green Line Gateway Plan. Typicals, it's funny doing typical on a sidewalk project. So there's no sidewalk or side path generally for the length of the project, and we're adding it in the future. The estimated project cost on this was $915,000, or $916,000. We're requesting $206,400 from the County Road Board. The city match is $51,600, and we did get recommended for the $657,000 from the federal portion on this project. Preliminary engineering in 2026, right-of-way 27, 28, construction in 28, 29, according to the East-West Gateway schedule. That's it. Anybody? Questions?
Very good. Thank you very much. Next up is City of St. Charles.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Road Board. My name is Nick Gall. I'm the Assistant City Engineer for the City of St. Charles, and I have the pleasure of presenting the city's projects to the Road Board tonight. All right. The city has 7 applications. 5 of these projects already have been awarded federal funds. There are 2 projects that we're going to be requesting to move forward, similar to what Amanda said, with design now and reapply for federal funds. So we won't move forward with construction until we get that federal funding. So I'll show that breakout on how we are planning the project to be, and I can go over that in more detail in a minute. Just around the city of St. Charles, we've got projects all over. 3 of the projects, the first 3 are along the First Capital Corridor, kind of in the heart of the city. The next 2 projects, 4 and 5, are along Boonslick Road. Project 6 is Fox Hill Road on the north end of the city, and Project 7's along Mugie Road. There's 3 intersections along there that we're going to do some improvements on. So really quickly, there's 3 projects along First Capital Drive, but they're really all interconnected together. So to kind of explain the limits of each one, the area in blue is a CMAQ application that we submitted that has been awarded funding for. It's a new roundabout at Kings Highway. In the magenta area is a pedestrian bridge, which we have been recommended for federally funds for, and that will connect basically Lindenwood University with the shopping center on University Commons, and it'll still have public access to the shared use paths and sidewalks along First Capital Drive. And then the area in red is one of our larger projects. It's more than a roundabout at Tompkins. It's really traffic flow improvements between West Clay and Kings Highway. I'll get into it in more detail, but there's a lot more improvements with that project. So the first project to talk about in more detail is a new roundabout at First Capital and Kings Highway. The First Capital Corridor, as many people know, it's heavily traveled. It's one of the largest interchanges at I-70 in St. Charles County. In this portion of First Capital Drive, there's about 24,000 cars a day that come into this intersection. And really, as you're traveling northbound, it splits. When you get to Kings Highway, about half the traffic, over 10,000 cars, go north on Kings Highway, and the other half go towards the historic downtown along First Capital Drive. First Capital kind of makes a weird 90-degree bend there towards the east. So today we have a lot of traffic congestion at that intersection. If you ever traveled north through there, there's kind of some driver confusion as you travel along Kings Highway because the two lanes kind of merge into one. There's also a lot of pedestrian conflicts in this corridor. Because the traffic's so heavy, pedestrians have started to just cross randomly across the roadway. They're not really using the sidewalks. There's some geometry changes. It's coming down a hill. There's also some curves where it makes it very difficult to see these pedestrians. It really makes for a very dangerous intersection. We have experienced, unfortunately, some pretty severe accidents with pedestrians at this intersection. So converting it into a roundabout has many benefits. One of them is traffic flow. It moves traffic flow easier, especially on off-peak times, because you're not having to stop at the intersection. You kind of merge through there. And it's a much safer intersection to travel. A lot of your conflict points, you're only having to worry about traffic coming from one direction. So it's a much safer intersection to navigate both for vehicular traffic and for pedestrian traffic. Just related to traffic, it does improve the signal operations. So without having a traffic signal, the traffic's able to go through there much faster, and it increases the level of service from what we see today at a level of service of a C to an A, which is the best. Other kind of safety benefits along this project, when we do a roundabout, actually I'm going to skip to the next slide. We're able to put in what's called refuge islands. So if you're a pedestrian crossing the road, there's a center median where you can take refuge and wait for the traffic coming from the other direction. So you're really only worried about one direction of traffic while you're crossing the roadway. With this project, I've kind of shaded it in orange in here. This is going to be the next project I'm going to talk about, which is the new pedestrian bridge. Since we have been awarded the pedestrian bridge, we will most likely eliminate this crosswalk here, which is the traffic that's the heaviest. It's about 24,000 cars a day traveling here, and it's about 10 to 12,000 cars on these legs. So much safer pedestrian crossing on First Capitol. We'll look at the funding breakdown. Really on all of our applications, the math looks a little strange on the screen. What it really is take the total project costs, subtract out what we got from the federal funds. It's 80% of the remainder. So the county portion and this specific project's about $800,000. It ends up being 20%, but it's really 80% of the remaining cost to the project. This project was recommended for funding, and we think it'll be a very good project moving forward. We have had the support of Lindenwood University. We've been in talking with them before we applied for all these projects. They're in support of the project and willing to work with us as we move forward. So the next project that I kind of touched on is a shared use path bridge that goes across First Capitol Drive. This is where, like I mentioned before, we see a lot of pedestrian movements that are kind of jaywalking or cutting across the road in places where we don't want them, really making a dangerous situation. This will provide a direct connection closer to the Lindenwood University dormitories towards the University Commons shopping area. In that University Commons, there's lots of restaurants, so even if it's not at night, for lunch, for the Schnucks Shopping Center there, the post office, there's a lot of amenities on that side of the road that the students are using and crossing quite frequently, along with the general public walking down the corridor. In general, it's close to where the Lindenwood Library is situated today. They have some existing paths that go through the university. It's kind of elevated too, kind of on the right-hand side of this photo. So that'll make a good opportunity for us to come over the road. And there is a green space next to the senior living facility at University Commons that's available for us to utilize for the improvements. So this is probably a better photo showing that connection. So this is the existing path today at the Lindenwood Library. The thought is, going back to the previous project, there'll be shared use paths on either side of the road, so some sidewalk connections will come around, And you'll still have a public access to this crosswalk, and then you'd be able to come back down and go over to University Commons. This is a very conceptual rendering of what it could look like. When we partner with Linwood University, there are some opportunities to do some branding on the bridge. What it will exactly look like, still to be determined, but really it's a direct connection from the university side to the University Commons. So similarly to the previous project, 80% of the remaining funds is what we've requested, so $560,000. About 20% of the cost would be County Road Board. The lion's share, $2 million, would be federal funds, and the remaining amount would be the city. So this next project is the First Capital and Tompkins intersection improvements.
Question on the shared use
Yeah.
path. Is that entrance going to be on Lindenwood property?
We will have a new dedicated easement through this whole corridor, so it
Okay.
will all be public property
Because I know there
in
have
the
been some
end.
issues with, homeless people, and Lindenwood has since trespassed them off their property, and I don't want
Yeah,
to
this-
make sure that they're able to use this to get to the other side, because they've been told you're only allowed to use the sidewalk, and if this is something that will,
Yeah, this will remain public. So we will
Okay.
have public access along First Capitol Drive, a little bit along their entrance, and connecting to this path.
thank you.
Yeah. All right, so First Capitol and Tompkins intersection. Similar to the Kings Highway intersection, this has a lot of traffic. It's more at the top of the hill, where Kings Highway is more at the bottom of the hill. There's still sight distance issues, a lot of accidents coming in and out of the University Commons shopping area, which is what we call Tompkins Street. And the proposed plan is to put another roundabout in. So remove a traffic signal, put in another roundabout. And really, roundabouts work better in tandem. So when we go to replace the Kings Highway roundabout, a roundabout at this location is going to help the traffic flow through that corridor even more. Similar to the other one, the level of service goes from a B to an A. So again, really improves the traffic flow to be the best that it can be, and a much safer intersection. In addition to the roundabout being a safer crossing for pedestrians, another feature on this project is looking at putting in median barriers. So in between the northbound and southbound traffic on First Capitol, there's a small brick median. What we're proposing to do with this project is to put in more of a barrier type of median, which would help prevent pedestrians from crossing in locations that you don't want them to. You're really forcing the pedestrians to use the crosswalks that they're intended to be used for. So this is kind of a rough schematic of what that center barrier could look like. This is a project where we did not receive the federal funds at this time. We think there's some benefits to continuing the design of this project now because it borders the adjacent projects. And so that we get a consistent design throughout this whole corridor to where these roundabouts will be designed with similar features and in similar fashion. So what we're recommending with this application is to move forward with design, and we'll reapply next year for federal funds. And these are the amounts that we are planning to reapply for. So as you see on the first line for design, there's no federal funds shown in that category. So it's an 80-20 split on the remaining costs. So take the total costs, subtract out what we believe will be awarded for federal funds, and the remainder would be 20% of that. That's how I came up with the 1.8 million.
Is Lindenwood participating in any way in any of this?
We are still working with them. We have actually some meetings coming up. What we're hoping for is to talk to them about property, on getting property donated, and we'll be talking about what their financial commitments might be available to the project, but they have not committed
No, I
financially
mean,
yet.
All your pictures have It's a Lindenwood project on the
Well, those are
median
just,
barrier.
yeah, the branding.
I'm not against it, but again, they should participate if it's gonna be an extension of their campus.
Yeah,
But just thought, I mean, again, they're a huge part of our city and all that type thing, so. I'm
yeah.
not-
The-
Same way with
the-
the pedestrian bridge, I mean, it's the benefit of Lindenwood.
Yeah, I would hope we're not spending a lot of money on it right away, and I'd hope they'd just be involved. So, especially if, with the crosswalk, they want that sign up there and all that. I mean, we can put a picture of Mayor Dan's face on there if we want. I mean, I'm sure he's
Right.
probably big enough for that, so, you know.
Probably statue too.
That would be nice, yeah.
Yeah, all I can say at this point, we have ongoing conversations with them. They are in support of the project. I don't have anything in writing yet, but we will be having those conversations.
Project with some cash.
Yeah, I think,
Well, if you want to put your signage all over it and all that type of thing, I mean, but
Well, but
anyway.
it benefits the school. You said it'd be public property, probably on the crosswalk.
yes.
It goes on to Lindenwood property, I mean, you have something in writing that says, you know, it will be made public?
Yeah, we have stuff that, in our conversation where we have to make it public to receive the federal funds.
Like Brian said, Lindenwood doesn't own the sidewalks over there either. It's
Right.
right away, so
Yeah,
same difference, right?
yeah, there's probably a mutual benefit for both the public and the university, and right now, we know that they're in support of it in concept, but we don't have any agreements in writing at this point in time.
Do you think it's beneficial to have two roundabouts that close together, that they'd feed off each other?
Yeah, so kind of the difference, if you have a traffic signal going into a roundabout, what sometimes happens is what we call platooning, where you've backed everyone up at the at the traffic signal, and then when they come to the roundabout, they're all bunched together. So if, coming from West Clay, if that's kind of the last traffic signal, you have more distance to get to Tompkins. When you get to Tompkins, it's going to spread out that traffic. And then when you get to Kings Highway, the traffic's already going to be spread out, so those gaps are there for coming in different directions. It'll work better in tandem, so
I
they'll
think the
work better
barrier-
together.
The barrier makes a lot of sense to force them to go up to the intersections to get across versus they don't have to do that now.
Yeah,
And they
it's
just
dangerous.
frogger across there.
Yes,
and
correct.
it happens.
You guys are, I mean, these roundabouts, frankly, I came First Capital tonight, and once you get a direction going into that roundabout where the traffic is just going car after car after car, seems like it's gonna stop a lot of the movements from other directions going into that roundabout. I mean, that's
What
just,
about the side
Yeah.
streets?
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
so,
I'm not a traffic engineer, but practical experience, I got one at
Yeah.
Wentzville on Church Street where the highway comes down, and literally, you take your life in your hands when you try to enter that roundabout.
yeah, I would say a good design is going to help that traffic flow a lot better.
Well,
So, what,
Unless you have too much traffic, that's, the rush hours is what I'm concerned with.
yeah.
yeah, so the traffic modeling that we've done with Lockmuller, not the city, we hired a consultant to do it. It improves the traffic flow, at all times, during peak, during midday. It really helps on off-peak times. At the middle of the night, I hate it when I have to stop at a traffic signal and no one's even here, coming in either direction. That prevents that from happening. And what I'd say, a good design's gonna slow that traffic down before it gets into the roundabout. You really need to turn those entry legs coming in, so that will help provide some of those gaps that come into play from the other legs. And you need to put in a large roundabout. This isn't a small traffic signal. These are gonna be pretty large in diameter, and that's gonna help both with the gaps, truck traffic coming through, and it'll help prevent some of the congestion
I
there.
remember your comment, when you get it built.
I actually think there's enough room there too, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, which is,
Yeah.
Best roundabouts that I've traveled through.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Turns.
Yeah, the slip rights, yeah, we are going to evaluate that.
Provider, so
Yeah, we'll have that evaluated as we move further in design, especially at Kings Highway, because that traffic splits in two directions. Right now, the initial model showed that doing a dual lane roundabout is the most efficient, but we'll continue to evaluate that in design. You're talking about a slip right where you don't enter the roundabout,
right, so you really
just turn
don't-
right.
You're really getting on the
Mhm.
roundabout, so you traffic keeps moving. A lot of it, even like you're talking about, they're coming off of 70, most of them are making it right up to church. You know, if you had a dedicated right,
Well, most of them make the,
well, all the way
most of them
around,
make the
though.
roundup to go south on Z.
Yeah.
The problem is when you're coming north on Z, you have to move over one lane in the roundabout to get back on Highway 70.
Right.
And that is where you get in trouble.
That's a really poor design.
It is
Yeah.
bad, believe me.
Yeah, we'll make sure these aren't designed like this. And I was also
When
gonna
you
say,
come on the- You come up on those people so quick.
Well, you're coming up in the center lane and you have to get to the outside lane. It's two lanes going around the roundabout. And you have to come from the center lane over to the outside lane to go 70 west. And those people coming down off 70, I guarantee you, they don't stop.
yeah.
They come into that
You're
roundabout.
never supposed to change lanes in a
Well, I was
roundabout.
gonna
So
say,
if it's
you-
designed
you-
that you
you
have to,
anticipate
it's
that.
designed wrong.
Well, it
Right.
is designed so you have to. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
it's
I'm
wrong.
saying.
I think,
And I
are they
would hope-
replacing that with the new project?
Yes,
Yes,
it goes away
thank
in
God.
this new
Thank
project,
goodness.
thank goodness. But
Thank
I don't know how
goodness.
many years it's been that way, because people said, the model said traffic flowed great in that roundabout, like
Yeah,
hell.
no, it,
The other
yeah.
problem with the roundabout is the rookies.
Right, I was
When you
gonna
don't- When you
say,
haven't been through it, just like some of these overpasses, the first couple times, your learning curve or somebody else's learning curve is a big issue.
that's true. And previous older designs are not as good as they've gotten now because people understand, like designers, engineers understand more how to make it work better. I feel like in the past, they were,
These models all show spacing between the cars.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
yeah, yeah, no, I hear what
Yeah.
you're saying, yeah.
Would this, would
Absolutely.
the project on the roundabout on Kings Highway and First Capital, is that any way influenced by what goes on further down Kings Highway? Is there gonna be any changes down at Jefferson?
Not at this time,
Uh,
for the intersection at
'cause
Jefferson.
That's another issue.
Yeah, this, in my opinion, I think this will help because I think people are getting confused on what lane to be in,
Yeah.
and they do a quick
Oh, they're
merge
not-
over.
They're not confused, they know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, they're racing from the line, right, from the traffic signal. Well, the traffic signal won't be there, so you're gonna have to,
That was something called a
If you
road
could just
dial.
put one lane into that.
Well, it
that
used to
would
be two lanes on
probably
each side, we
improve.
did a road dial.
Yeah.
We didn't, but then, you know.
I
so-
think
That
vision
didn't work
in
very
my head
well.
right now.
No, we're fat again.
Was there somebody who had a question?
I think
Was there
someone
anybody on the
online.
phone who had a question? I thought somebody was.
someone online?
Cindy?
Or were they asking
Yeah.
to speak into the microphone? Oh,
Yep.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, how does the roundabout on First Capital address the traffic that continues north between James Butler and Watson, where they merge together? That's really confusing, and if we have a couple, is that roundabout two lanes, or is it one lane?
Yes.
And how is that addressed? Because if we have, when you have a stoplight there, I think people have time to pause and think about it. If it's consistent and you've got those two lanes merging, one is a left only, and one is a continue on right, and there's a lot of bottleneck there.
Yes, so today, like you mentioned, we have two lanes that go through that intersection today, and it will be a dual lane roundabout. And both lanes will continue to be able to be moved through that intersection, so you could be in either lane as you go through the roundabout. So it'll be a dual lane roundabout. So you would need to be in the right lane of the roundabout to continue on Kings Highway, and if you needed to turn left onto Watson, you would be in the left-hand lane.
Okay, so it doesn't really address that bottleneck there at all. It's just
I
this
think-
project ends before that merger of that lane.
I think the wayfinding signage, when we remove this traffic signal, will tell you what lane you need to be in further in advance. That will hopefully reduce the amount of people cutting each other off as you approach Watson.
Thank you.
And I think they may end up refining that when they get into further looking at that. As a traffic engineer,
Yeah.
I'm gonna just say that's probably gonna get changed.
Yeah.
so you've got funding for the federal funding for the first two, and the other one we're talking about potentially just design.
Correct.
Okay.
And then reapply for federal funds. Okay. The next two projects are along Boonslick Road. The first one is another roundabout at Fairgrounds and Boonslick. Similar to First Capital, there's a lot of, instead of a traffic signal at this location, it is just a four-way stop. There are some, well, there's not very many sidewalks on the road today, but there are people crossing the road. They're walking on the shoulders, and there's a lot of conflicts between pedestrians and vehicles, and there's also some curves in this area, making it dangerous to see the cars that are stopped at the stop sign and the pedestrians crossing the road. Similar to the other roundabouts, what's different about this one is this is a single lane roundabout, so a little bit easier to navigate. The city owns the northwest quadrant of this intersection. There's an old fire station there that we'll remove as part of this project. And it'll really help move traffic through this area. It'll also set us up for future projects by providing a shared use path on the north side of Boonslick Road. In that northwest quadrant, that's the city-owned property, that is Boonslick Park. We're doing some improvements out there today related to stormwater. There'll be some improved trails through that park, and this project will be able to connect into that and help pedestrians access the Mark Twain Shopping Center, which is where Bass Pro is, and the shopping and restaurants in that plaza. This project was recommended for funding, so it has been awarded federal funds. So less than 20%, almost $600,000 in county road board funding and $2.4 million in federal funds. This next project, similar to the Tompkins one, this one was not recommended for federal funds, but we think there's some benefits to continuing design on this one, to design some road improvements from where the new roundabout will be at Fairgrounds to 5th Street. So part of the issues on this stretch is there's no sidewalks today. The lanes are pretty wide. There is striping out there, but there's nothing physically limiting where the vehicles can go. People are kind of randomly walking in the shoulder area. So what this project will do is really define that space better, do a little bit of road dieting to restrict those lanes to just be 12-foot wide, not any wider. Do some improved curbing gutter, put in adjacent sidewalk on one side and a shared use path on the north side, which is where the Boonslick Park is. Just kind of improvements along the corridor. It'll go from the new roundabout all the way to 5th Street, which was redone like a few years ago, where we had a federal project and stopped our improvements at that intersection. So it'll really tie the whole corridor together. So similar to that Tompkins project, if you look at the first line, there's no federal funds in design. Our goal and proposal is to move forward with design now and then reapply for the federal funds. And it's 80% of the remaining. So take the total project, remove the $2.8 million in federal funds. That's how, take 80% of that, and that's the $1.1 million in county road board funding.
The roundabout, more, any concern with the hill going up? I guess that's Fairgrounds, I know the road changes names 6 times, but
Yes.
going uphill there, is that hill a
Yeah,
concern
let's-
to you at all? It seems to me on a roundabout, that hill's gonna be a major problem.
Yeah, it'll actually help slow you down a little bit as you're approaching the roundabout. As you enter the roundabout, the picture there is on Fairgrounds looking at,
Looking
yeah,
north.
yeah, looking at it. So it's fairly flat at the Fairgrounds side. It's really the Boonslick corridor, like you mentioned, kind of has a hill kind of on the, coming up the hill in this
Well, no,
direction.
I'm talking about the one that goes
Coming
down
out of Paul
Fairgrounds.
Terrace.
The one that comes out of Paul.
Oh, up in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the lower volume road coming up through here. This will be tabletopped. We are looking at doing significant regrading in this quadrant and along here. And the roundabout itself will be flat, but yeah, it'll be somewhat steep coming through this corridor, but this is why we have to tie it back so far, is to really make that grade still meet city standards, so it won't be a mountain steep grade, but it will be.
Are you taking out the house there?
Yeah, this plan would be looking at a full relocation at this property. The way that the driveway comes in is very difficult
Yeah,
to
I was gonna
preserve
say,
the
it could be
access to
right
that
in the
property.
roundabout, yeah.
So we have planned for a full relocation at that residence.
What do you do, the fire station goes away?
Yeah, the fire station it's vacant now. The Parks Department uses it for storage, and they'll have storage elsewhere on site.
Okay.
Did this project get introduced for safety concerns, or what was the impetus behind this project?
Yeah, for federal funding, it was a CMAQ project, so it scored the best for traffic flow, but there are also safety benefits that it did get awarded points through.
The first capital project, that one is really, obvious. This one is far less obvious to me. But, I mean, I see the value of slowing the traffic down and having control at that intersection. I often drive that. But the overall value seems a little less obvious to me.
Yeah, you'll have continuous flow through the intersection, so you won't have to stop anymore at all times during the day. And then it is a traffic calming type feature, so we do have some issues with speeding along Boones Lake Road. It's a 30-mile-an-hour roadway, and there's no way you can drive the roundabout at 30 miles an hour without running over the roundabout.
Yeah.
This would be a tough sell if you didn't have federal funds.
It was a great federal project.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, when you get the federal funds, that really
Yeah.
raises the skids for,
Yeah.
a project.
Yeah.
I think that's a perfect situation for a roundabout.
Yeah.
I think it would be interesting to put parking on the south side of Boones Lake between Rose and Fifth Street.
I don't think we're proposing to do any parallel parking on the roadway. There is a small parking lot that we'll have at Boones Lake Park, but,
There now.
well, with the proposed
Oh.
plan, yeah.
Yeah. It'd be, when they have fairs and whatnot, having another 100 parking spaces along there would be interesting, or 50 or whatever it would end up being. I don't know, just thinking out loud.
We can work through some of those details during design. All right, so our next project is along Fox Hill Road. This is on the north end of the city. This project has been awarded federal funds actually last year. We've actually hired a consultant and have already made it through preliminary plan approval, and we'll be seeking just funding for construction dollars. Along Fox Hill Road, there is Fox Hill Park. It's mostly a residential area. It's got several stop signs along the route. There are intermittent sidewalks. Most of the sidewalks that are there are in fairly poor condition. They're not our normal standard width. There's a lot of trip hazards because they're older, so they've been just displaced slabs, so they're kind of tripping hazards. So what this project will do, will add some traffic calming improvements to try to slow the traffic down. The roadway is fairly straight and level. It'll add new sidewalk improvements and help provide a safer corridor for all modes of travel. Starting on the far west end, this is where Fox Hill Park is. There's an existing crosswalk here today. What we're looking at doing is really starting the project in that area and shifting the crosswalk about 10 to 20 feet further north, which allows us to narrow our roadway down. Today, the roadway width kind of varies. It's very wide. We really want to narrow those lanes down to where they're 11-foot wide in each direction and make it a little more uncomfortable for traffic traveling through that corridor. When you approach some of these intersections, like at Tamarack, in order to meet ADA, we have to rebuild that whole intersection. Just the way that the grades are too steep to get a normal crosswalk in. So we'll have to remove that full pavement to get a nice level crosswalk for people to cross in all directions. As you move further down the corridor, it's a little difficult to see, but as you reach Memelas intersection, this is where we have another crosswalk along First Capitol, and we're actually bumping out into the road. It will protect some of this parallel parking that's on either side of the roadway and really slow down traffic through this area. It's kind of a traffic calming feature throughout the project. These sidewalks are not quite wide enough for a bike, so we are putting in what we call bike sharrows or bike lane, share the road pavement markings and signage to alert drivers that bikes are allowed to be on this roadway as well. So the funding for this project, we have been awarded $800,000 in federal funds. We are requesting about $600,000 all in construction to move this project forward and get it completed. So speeding along. Our last project here. So the Nuki Intersections project at Hackman, Greystone, and Old 94. These are three intersections within the city that have similar issues with side street traffic and pedestrian traffic. So Wapple Horse Park is right over here, near Hackman Road. And today, the crosswalks are pretty narrow. They're kind of awkward to navigate. Mugi Road, as it probably should be, is really geared towards vehicular traffic. So what this project is going to look at is how do we better accommodate our pedestrian movements going across the road. We are seeing in this area more and more pedestrians than in the past, and we think this will be a good project to help both increase the safety of those pedestrians and evaluate the traffic along there to make sure that the crosswalk spacing is appropriate, like when they push the button that they have time to cross the road instead of having to race through the road. This project will evaluate the signal timings at those intersections for those pedestrians.
A lot of people walk into the park.
Yeah.
A lot.
A lot, yes. Just kind of an example of one of the intersections. You can see someone's already walking across here. They walk in this corridor a lot. This is at Greystone. One of the challenges along here is Mugi's got some steep grades that accommodate the vehicular traffic. What this project's going to need to do is look at replacing this pavement and redoing the profile along here to help flatten this out a little bit better for pedestrians to be able to walk across here. And really, for federal funding, it needs to be ADA compliant, which means we need to be able to accommodate a wheelchair. So if you're in a wheelchair, they don't want that wheelchair, the steep grades of it, to push them into the vehicular traffic. They need to be able to cross on all directions of the intersection without being forced into the vehicular traffic way. So you're going to see similar pictures at each intersection. Essentially, each intersection is looking at redoing the pavement. The crosswalks that we do put in, we want to make sure that we're accommodating the future condition. At this point in time, we don't have shared use paths, but we do want to make sure that we accommodate them in the future. So these crosswalks will be 10-foot wide so that we provide a nice level area that if in the future we wanted to upgrade the sidewalks to be a shared use path that accommodates bikes, that we don't have to redo the intersections, which is usually the most costly part of those projects anyway. This is the Greystone intersection, and then Old 94. Old 94 is a little more challenging because it has some of these triangular raised medians. So we'll evaluate that during design. So
But of the three, that's probably the flattest
it is.
of all three of them.
It is. By far. So the funding breakdown, we were awarded a little over $700,000 in federal funds, and we're requesting a little over $600,000 in county road board funds just for construction. We are really kicking off design now with a design consultant and hope to have the bulk of the design done within a year. So that's it. That's all I got.
Well, I would say congratulations and thank you for all your work getting the federal funds.
Yeah.
That's a game changer for us and certainly makes our job a lot easier, and scores better and everything else. But our dollars go farther, your dollars go farther. That's what it's all about. So thank you.
Yep.
Any questions?
Does the federal still score roundabouts higher than a regular intersection?
They do a traffic before and after condition analysis, so it could be a signal, it could be a roundabout. In this scenario for these projects, the roundabout performed better than the traditional signal.
So they score it better, so.
On these projects, they did. Not always, but most of the time.
Thank you very much. Any new business this evening?
I just wanted to say I've been looking at the budget for like the last 2 weeks, trying to reconcile 24 and make sure we've gotten all payments recorded. We are seeing savings on a good number of projects because they brought them in high after things got crazy in 2020. So now we're finally seeing a level off and are getting some savings back. So I think that we are going to have, our $40 million to program this year. That's what's coming in now. So I actually am not sure that we had that much request in applications. I haven't totaled it up, but I think it's probably less than that amount. Not saying that everybody's going to get funded because I still will hold that over. But it is looking like we have some good funding available, and I hope to bring all of that to the next meeting as well as the 2 last cities presentations so we can kind of start discussing.
Awesome.
How does our rainy day fund look, or economic development fund? Are we?
Yep, we're good. We haven't used any this year. I've had a couple people ask me about it, but no applications have come in. So we have our 10 million sitting there to fund right now if somebody needs it.
Good.
Do you have any idea what Highway 70 rebuild's gonna do to price of materials and labor and?
That is not my,
Yeah, I just wondered, because we're talking a lot of local material,
yeah.
the rebuild 70.
Yeah, I don't know. Is anybody seeing anything with bids?
I'd say for now, our bids are fairly competitive, but that's definitely something we've given a lot of thought to, and we do anticipate it'll have some effect on pricing. Drive it up.
Because it's gonna suck out a lot of cement and a lot of asphalt,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of steel, everything.
I think they have their own batch plant set up, so some of those, they won't necessarily be pulling from the same suppliers or supply
Right.
locations, but certainly it's gonna have an effect, we think.
Any other business? If not, our next meeting is Wednesday, June 18th. We'll let you know where we're going to meet, but we'll get some additional tip applications at that time.
We'll be here.
We'll be here. Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, so saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.